So we'll give it a few minutes for people to come in. Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for joining us. We're just going to hang on for 2 minutes just to see if anybody else joins us. What we often find is people join a little late and then ask the questions that have already been answered. So it's best if we just hold on for just a couple of minutes. We're up to 60 people that have joined us on this very sunny Tuesday afternoon. Is it sunny where you are, Steph?
It is. It's lovely and sunny. Maybe it's slightly too hot.
Oh, really? Uh-huh. I've heard it's I'm up north right now. I'm in Stoke, closer to Manchester, so it's not too hot, and it was cloudy this morning. All right, so we're to 62 people. We'll just give it 1 more minute. And then we can start. So thank you everybody for joining us today. You can see lots of people coming in from lots of different universities around the UK. So it's super exciting to see you today to talk about assessment centres. It's been a long time since I've managed an assessment centre, so I'm happy you're here, Steph, to answer the questions.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for having me.
So should we start off? Why not tell everybody a little bit about you and why you are our assessment centre guru today?
Yeah, thanks, Adam. Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for joining today. So as Adam said, I'm Steph. I've been working in the early careers industry for about 12 years now. So that's everything from apprenticeships all the way through to graduate. So any sort of early in careers. I've worked for a variety of different companies across various industries, including financial services, consulting, technology, a few companies that you might have come across, Deutsche Bank and Visa. So yeah, really excited to be here. I've worked across all different stages of the application process, but focused a lot on assessment centres, both building them, running them, and assessing at them. So hopefully going to give you lots of answers.
Wonderful. We do have a true expert here today. Thank you, Steph. That's excellent. Well, again, thank you everybody who has registered and joined and sent questions through in advance. We will be asking some of those questions. We can't get through them all. And just to manage expectations, because of the time we have, we'll be answering the general questions and not so much specific questions about very, very specific industries. If you do have questions that come to mind during, please pop them in the chat. And then if we haven't answered them during the session and we still have time, we will answer them. So let's start off with some of the most popular questions that we've had. So quite a few people like Janelle from Kings and Amina from Greenwich, Mariam from Manchester have been asking quite generally, what does a typical assessment centre structure look like?
Yeah, and this is a great question and often a question that I've had. So generally speaking, assessment centres will include a welcome, an introduction. Sometimes you'll have a Q&A session throughout, and that could be hosted by some of the internal staff or some of the grads and interns that are already there, apprentices as well. That does depend on the size of the company as well. So if they've got quite a big program, then you'll tend to have those involved. You normally have some sort of interview. Now, I would say this varies from about 1 to 3, and a group exercise. Like what I would always suggest is that you ask the recruiter if they haven't told you already, but generally they will give you an idea of what that structure is going to look like. These days, there's both virtual and in person, so do make sure you check whether it's going to be a virtual or an in-person assessment centre. But the structure of that will remain the same, and they'll be really clear with you on the day as well, making sure you know exactly where you need to be at different times. But that's the sort of thing you can expect from assessment centre.
Okay, thank you. And you mentioned a group activity. Could you give us some examples of group exercises and what would be being assessed during these exercises?
Yes, a good question. So generally, group exercises tend to link to some of the work that you'd actually be doing in the role. So think about the company or the role that you're actually going for. One thing I would say with the different exercises that I've sort of worked on previously is there'll definitely be a couple of parts to it. So there won't just be sort of there'll be an overriding question and then a couple of subsections. So make sure you read the whole bit that you're given. It might be on paper, it might be a virtual sort of script that you're given. And there'll always be a few people in that group, always more than two. And really, assessors are there just to look at how you go about that task. So when you're thinking about it, make sure you've read the task carefully, you're speaking clearly, but you're taking the time to hear others too. And assessors are going to be looking at how you work in a group format, but how understand a task, how you might process that, and then start to sort of work your way through it. Now, most of the time in these group exercises, you're not expected to come up with something, world changing or completely innovative. You don't have that much time. Generally, you're talking about an hour for that group exercise. So they're not expecting you to do something, like really in detail, but make sure you've read the task, you've ticked all of the points that they're looking for, and that you're speaking clearly. One thing that I see a lot, and this is a really good hint and tip, is make sure you're keeping time, because you often get wrapped up in the time and it flies by. You think an hour is a really long time, but it suddenly goes. So do make sure you're keeping an eye on that time.
Would you suggest that somebody in that group is a nominated timekeeper? So either you put yourself forward or nominate somebody, and then one person has that responsibility, because I believe that looks good in the assessment center if you take that responsibility.
Absolutely. So if nobody else is doing it, make sure you're that person to go, right, I've checked the time. It's now 1:38 and we've got 50 minutes. We've got 10 minutes for this first bit. So I'm going to make a note and tell us when we're 10 minutes through.
Okay, excellent. Thank you. Tamana from Southampton is asking, um, how do you stand out in these group exercises? Because of course sometimes there's some very dominant people in there. Um, what are some tips you can share?
Yeah, it's a really good question. So I think, like I mentioned, make sure you really understand the task first, because some people might just go straight in and start talking, and actually they haven't fully understood it. So if you've understood it, then you'll be able to say, "Oh, actually, I've just read this," and you'll be able to highlight it. If you're in a virtual setting, this generally is harder because you have people talking over each other. But if you're using Teams or Zoom or whatever the application, you can often like raise your hand and use the images there if you can't say something. Do make sure you are saying something as well, but don't say something just for the sake of it. Make sure you're actually adding value. So you've taken the time to think about what it is in the task. If you're finding that perhaps you're the only one speaking, and you want some contribution, make sure to just say, Bob, Adam, and Jess, please could you tell me what you think or how you've interpreted it? So you're bringing people together into that conversation as well. All of that's going to really kind of help you stand out. Again, making sure you're not the one talking over people as well, but giving yourself the opportunity to have time to speak.
So it's not about, because not everybody can be a leader, right? And I
No.
think sometimes people think that to succeed in a group exercise, they should lead it. But there's other parts that you can play.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I think, sometimes people will have natural leadership instincts and kind of take that lead. That's okay. Make sure you're able to contribute to your part, whatever that part might be in the exercise. And assessors will be looking at it from a holistic point of view. They're not going to be saying, right, they've led it, so they're the person that we're going to offer. It doesn't work like that. There's a lot of things that they're looking at in terms of they'll have a score sheet and sort of taking notes sort of throughout that full exercise. So don't worry if you're not the leader, but also by all accounts, please do, put yourself forward as a leader if that's, your kind of style.
Yes. I mean, I remember I've done assessment centers myself, right? Say something, because if you don't say anything, then you can't be assessed. Unless you speak, the assessor can't assess you and score you, right? So it's important you say something. And again, this is a question that's been asked by a few people. What are the assessors actually looking for?
Yeah, so they're going to be looking for how you approach the task, making sure you've read and understood the question. So you're, taking note of the instructions and making sure you're following that. Making sure you're involving people. How do you actually work in a team? This will normally be the first time that they're seeing you in a group setting. So you may, in previous interviews, have given examples where you've worked in a team or you've led this or you've contributed in this way, but this is their first time of actually seeing you do that. In every single role, there'll be always times where you'll be working in a group environment. So this is why group exercises tend to kind of fit into the assessment centre so that they can look at how you're approaching that task, what is your stages of kind of going through the process, and where you kind of get to as an end result.
Thank you. I've got a question. It may be one of the later ones, but it's on my mind now. In an assessment centre room, is it a competition between everybody so that so many people will pass and so many won't? Or could everybody in that assessment centre room actually make it through to the next stage or to an offer?
Yeah, so every company I've worked for, it's very much on however many people we think are, great candidates from that will get through. It's not, we're only going to be putting through 5 out of 10. We never go into assessment centres thinking that. We are purely assessing the talent. So it's not, yes, okay, you're interviewing in a group setting, but you're not in competition as such. There's normally quite a few offers coming out of those assessment centres. Yeah, we're kind of looking at everyone as a whole. And generally, when you get to the assessment centre, you've gone through quite a few stages. So you've been assessed as the top candidates out of all of the applications that have come through. So that in itself is a huge achievement. And this final stage is kind of just really getting assessing and making sure that you are the right fit for the company. But I would also use this opportunity to say it's also your opportunity to check that this is the right company for you. So if there's not a particular Q&A session, make sure in those interviews you are asking questions to make sure that this is the right role and company that you're comfortable with.
Great, thank you. And just leading or linking to what we've been talking about, Vivian from Sussex and Angie has just popped a message here. So Vivian was talking about as a more introverted candidate, how do I stand out? And Angie has said, as a woman, she often finds that her voice is not as loud as that of men's. I'm not sure that's my experience. How to grab the attention when people are talking and ignoring without coming off as stiff and abrupt. So introverted and those that maybe voices aren't as strong as others.
So one thing I would say is that assessors are generally very aware of people that are, ignoring others. So as long as you are doing your best to try and get, a word in, if you like, that will be picked up. I would say, it's okay to, if someone keeps talking, to say, I'm really sorry. I've got something that I think will be really valuable to this conversation. Would you mind if I just talk through whatever it is that you want to say? And that's a really polite way of doing it. you're stopping someone, but also then having the opportunity to speak up. As someone who might be coming into it a little bit more introverted, this possibly will feel a little bit out of your comfort zone. That's okay. What I would say is do try and practice some of the at home. Like, you're not going to know the actual exercise, but you can get, you know, friends, family to sort of test you and say, asking these questions, getting you to just speak up a little bit. I think it's okay to just note that perhaps you might say, look, I'm going to take the timekeeping here, and then, you know, you might not necessarily take the lead in the discussion if that's something that you feel very uncomfortable with. But sometimes you'll be surprised by stepping out of your comfort zone how well you can stride forward. So I think a little bit of practicing, a little bit of preparation. If you've prepared for the assessment centre, looking at the company, looking at the job description, generally the group exercise is going to kind of link around that. Same as some of the interview questions, because there's interviews as part of assessment centres as well. So it's not just all on that group exercise, as you know, you will have one-on-one time as well. So I do think don't put so much pressure if that's an area that feels slightly uncomfortable. Everything is practice as well. So as horrible as it might sound, the more assessment centres you do, generally you tend to get better because you know what to expect, and you know how the group exercises work and things like that. Hopefully you don't have to go through lots, but
Yes.
we've all been there. Myself, I've been through
Sure.
plenty of assessment centres as a candidate as well.
Thank you, Steph. And just leading on from that, would you, every assessment centre is different, has a slightly different format. So when I was running assessment centres, all of the downtime in between the focused activities where you were being assessed, typically there was somebody from the company or one of the assessors around, maybe at lunch. Would you say that would be a good time for somebody who is quieter, more introverted, to interact with the assessors? And also, I guess my to lead on about it's not just about in the activities where you're being assessed, right? It's the whole day.
Yeah, so I always say you are being assessed as soon as you leave your front door. And I say that because you might bump into those assessors on the train,
I
going
have
into
done
the
that.
office.
Yeah.
So think if you have that in your mindset, then you'll be absolutely fine. Throughout the day, you will meet people in the office. Kind of like Adam says, there'll be downtimes where perhaps you're waiting for your next interview, or someone else might have finished, you're moving rooms. There will be people to talk to, and often there'll be people to talk to ask your questions. And that is, like, if you are a bit introverted, to have that more one-on-one informal question and answer rather than in an interview, then that's absolutely fine to take that time to do it. And yes, there'll be people giving feedback throughout. If something happens, they might say, oh, I spoke to this person and they were so nice, they asked some really great questions. Although it might not be part of the actual assessment, that all helps to feed in to paint an overall picture.
Okay, great. Thank you, Steph. So we've got a question here which is around the STAR technique and how to use that effectively. I think that's come from Mariam in Manchester and one or two others. Could you explain to us what is the STAR technique for anyone that doesn't know, and how and when to use this?
Yeah, absolutely. So, the STAR technique stands for situation, task, action, and result. You can use this throughout your interviews. So, situation, when, where did it happen? Was it a university? Was it in one of your social activities? Maybe it's a sports society or something like that. What was the task that you had? So giving a bit of information around that. So building a picture for your interviewer. The action is then kind of what you did and what was the steps that you took, really. How did you go about it? And the result then being, what did you achieve and what did you potentially learn from that situation? And what that does, it really helps portray a really good picture of that particular example, rather than just if a question is something like, tell me about how you work in a team. And you go, yeah, I work in a team while I play football. Okay, and you can build upon it by going, I'm part of a university football club. We recently had a competition. I was team captain. I had a bit of a situation where we had two people on the sub bench that really wanted to come on. So I was then trying to help them get on to get some gameplay. I did this by X, Y, Z, and the end result was that we ended up winning the match, or whatever it might be. So really think about some of the examples that you've got. You've got a lot of resources out there to kind of pull upon for potential practice interview questions. Use some of those and then look at that STAR methodology to kind of think, okay, I've got an example of this and these are the stages that I did, so that you can help build that picture for the interviewer.
Yeah, really great advice. And I coach a lot of people with CVs and interviews, and always emphasize the result. When you can have quantifiable data, if possible, you've increased or decreased something that was favorable. But if not, some facts, some results, right? Anyone can say that they can do something, but not everybody can prove that they can do it, is how I say it. Just quickly here, Priya Singh has asked, what do you wear, casual or formal?
Oh, it's a great question. I'd always check what the company does. So if you haven't been told, do ask a recruiter, what is the dress code? A lot of companies now show sort of day in the life, so you can get an idea of the sort of dress code. I would always kind of go overdressed in terms of smartness. So if you're a bit concerned, then always just dress it up. That's always going to look better than dressing down if you're unsure of the sort of dress code at the company. But it's absolutely okay to ask what the dress code is for an assessment centre.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. Okay, so questions here, I think is Tanu from Liverpool, is asking, have assessment centres changed over the years as the job market has tightened?
Great question. I personally haven't seen the structure change. The big change has been the virtual versus in person, and that
Sure,
was huge with COVID,
of
because
course.
we needed assessment centres to keep going. So there's still a lot of virtual assessment centres happening. So that's why I mentioned at the beginning, do check whether it's a virtual or in-person assessment centre so that you're prepared. The format of it generally is exactly the same, because you can run interviews and group exercises in the same way. So really, the structure, as I mentioned, having some sort of welcome, potentially a Q&A session, an interview and a group exercise has kind of been the same format for quite a while now.
Okay, great. There's a question that's just popped up here, which I think is quite fun. Is Alston Hawkins is asking, and I was thinking of something you've mentioned a couple of times about, "Oh, don't do this." You must have had some experiences where a candidate has turned up on the wrong day or at the wrong place, has turned up in person for an online or vice versa. But the question here is, can you recall any standout candidates from assessment centres that you've run, and what it was that impressed you?
Great question. Yes, definitely. There are some that still stick in my mind. Generally, it's the people that really are themselves. Now, I know that sounds silly, but when you come to an assessment centre, there's always going to be nerves, and that's totally expected. But as much as you can try and relax, be yourself, be confident, it really helps to kind of just show who you are as a person, and for us to kind of, as assessors, look at whether you're going to be the right fit within the company. We're obviously assessing your skill set as well. I've had some very introverted people throughout assessment centres that have really stood out to me. They've been really kind and caring throughout the day. I think there's a lot of things we're looking at, and as we've touched upon, it's not just necessarily in those interviews or in the group exercise. If I'm running the assessment centre, I might not be in any of those, but I'm seeing you sort of throughout the day. I generally would say the people that ask questions as well really stand out, because they're taking the time to think about the company, think about the role, and thinking, is this the right place for me? And I think that's really important, and you always stand out by doing that.
Great. Thank you, Steph. I think you've hit on a really important point there about being yourself. I've seen it before. My experience when I was running assessment centers, people have an idea of what they think they want the assessors, right? So they go and try and play a part or act in a way they think they want the company wants them to be, and that's just not the case. And if you get it wrong, go and be who you are. And if it's not right for you, it's not right for you. But be yourself, be genuine. It shows those that are trying to be somebody. There's so many activities throughout the day, you're going to come unstuck at some point. But just, yeah, be yourself. Really, really important. Chloe's just asked, could assessment centers be in the hiring process of any company for any position? Is it mainly graduate jobs or internships? Like, I used to work in retail and hospitality recruitment, and we would have assessment centers at all levels, even up to senior area district managers. So it really is all positions. Steph, you've worked in different sectors. Is it the same across all industries?
Yeah, absolutely. Generally, if you're hiring a lot of people, assessment centres are used across, and it doesn't necessarily matter if you're hiring only one person for a particular role, because assessment centres can pull people in from all different roles and all different sectors through that one day, and it's really an opportunity for lots of interviews and to happen, people to come together. So yeah, I've seen it at all levels, all stages, all different industries and different roles. So if it's not something you come across in your first job, it definitely come across later on in life for sure.
Thank you. So Adrian from Smurf at Westrock has asked, do employers typically assess personality? And does success depend on the assessor?
That's a really good question. So assessors have really sort of strict guidelines in terms of how they assess, and that's so that it's a really fair process. All interviewers will go through interview training, will be taken through exactly what the questions are. Sometimes they'll have some flex within the questions, so they don't necessarily, they can ask 1 out of 3, for example. But the way the scoring's done is to make it really fair. So all of the assessors will come together at an assessment centre and do what we call like a wrap up. And that is really so that they can talk through the scores in a little bit more detail, and sort of give a little bit of examples and why they've scored the way they have. So that really helps kind of build that picture. I would say that most assessment centres I've kind of looked at, it's not just that process that's looked at, it's the processes that you've been throughout the application stage as well. So all of that kind of feeds into the sort of end result. Sometimes assessment centres aren't the last stage, it might be then a final interview, but whatever that is, the decision from that assessment centre often pulls in a lot of things. So it's not just the assessor. Obviously they will be a part of that decision, but they are not the sole decision maker. In terms of your personality, I think it's really key that you show your personality, because again, that really helps, your authentic self come through. And like Adam was talking about, it may not be that this company is right for you, but that's the best thing really in the long term, because you don't want to start at a company that you don't feel comfortable at. So the best thing you can do is be yourself, because then it will help long term with the company and then your sort of career throughout that company.
Okay, great. There's some more good questions coming through. Thank you, and we'll come back to those. So do keep them coming. There's some really interesting ones. There's quite a specific one. We've not spoken yet about psychometric testing, and there's a question that we got in advance. And this was from Fahim, who says, as someone with ADHD, I can have a hard time with psychometrics in some conditions, and as such, I find music can help me a bit. Is it strategic for me to ask for access to music in assessment centres, or will this negatively affect my chances? So I guess, yeah, for people that need any extra assistance to help them, have you encountered this? What's the right way to approach this?
Yeah, I've come across lots of different adjustments for assessment centres and interviews throughout the process. So some assessment centres I have seen them do sort of a psychometric or part of a test as part of the assessment centre. Often the psychometric tests happen kind of earlier on in the stages. But what I would say is make sure that you ask the person that you're speaking to, whether the recruiter, the coordinator, whoever's kind of giving you the information, explain that you would like some reasonable adjustments. Every single company will have an email address or someone that you can reach out to talk about the reasonable adjustments, and that's absolutely fine. They will try and accommodate whatever it is that you need as best as they can. So I've had people that need extra time in group exercises. So perhaps they've gone and read the group exercise before they've actually then joined the group discussion. I've had people that need a little bit more time throughout their interviews, and that's okay. We look at the structure of the day to accommodate that. There's lots of different things, and your coordinator and recruiter will be best able to advise exactly what they can do to support you so that you feel comfortable on the day.
Okay, thank you very much. Um, Question here. Some interviewers tend to be quite hard on you during an interview. So they try and intimidate you. I'm not sure what experience you've had, Ano from the University of Sussex. I'm sorry you've had that experience. If that does happen, how as a candidate do you approach those situations? I've seen it on The Apprentice.
I think, a lot of interviewers now have gone through a lot of training. So I hope that you don't have too many interviews like that. There are people that generally that is a bit of their sort of personality, and that it's not that they're trying to intimidate you. That's just how they kind of ask questions and how they are dealing with that situation. So all I would say is just try and remain calm, take a breath. It's absolutely okay once you're asked a question to just take a minute, take in a notepad and pen and jot something down. Just say, I just want a minute to just think about this. That's absolutely fine to do. Yeah, as long as you're sort of staying calm and going through that, like I said, they will have questions and they will have some sort of notes that they'll be taking as well. Some people don't like to speak whilst they're taking notes, and that can come across quite intimidating because there's some silence. Silence is actually okay, so try not to worry. I know it's a nerve-wracking situation to be in, but that's, as we've sort of said, just calm as much as you can be. Take a glass of water as well, have a little sip, and all of those can help calm nerves and sort of keep you on track to answer those questions.
Great tips. Thank you, Steph. Okay, so Katerina, I believe here, has asked, in your experience of running assessment centers for banking in the financial industry, um, how are the days typically structured? Is there a similar format, or are they all different in terms of the order of the assessment and the length? What would you say?
Generally, assessment centres seem to be about half a day. So you might be invited to a morning assessment centre, you might be invited to an afternoon. I've run full days where I've sort of had 12 candidates in the morning, 12 candidates in the afternoon. And that seems to be very similar across different industries. Some will kind of spread them out a little bit longer. Sometimes you might be lucky enough to enjoy a breakfast or a lunch included. But that's company dependent. And like I said, they will explain to you the exact times of the days and what you can sort of expect. But in terms of the structure, it's very, very similar across all of them.
Great, thank you. I like this question here from Hajira, who said, is it beneficial for candidates to verbally talk through their internal thought process when they're doing a task? So to show how they are approaching the problem solving.
Oh, that's a good question.
Yeah.
Um, so I think it really depends on the situation. So if you're in a group format, it might be good to sort of talk through some of the internal process of how you've got to that stage. That being said, you don't want to be talking through it as you're going through it and other people aren't able to then talk. So I think be mindful of the situation. Again, in an interview, if you need a little bit of time, you might just say, look, I'm thinking about this and I'm just making some notes, and that's okay. I don't think you need to talk through everything, but in some questions, it might be quite good. Think about that STAR methodology that we mentioned as well. It might be useful to talk about why you've sort of come to where you've got to.
Great. Thank you. Okay, so we've talked lots and lots about the day itself. Can we take a little step back? Priya and Angie are both asking around, and somebody else is asking as well, preparation beforehand. Angie's asking if there's any resources, any specific books. She says the internet offers lots, but if there's anything specific. Or just generally how best to prepare? Is there anything to prepare before the day?
Good question. So normally you'll receive an email from the recruiter or coordinator explaining exactly what you can expect on the day. Now, sometimes they'll say you need to prepare a presentation or something like that. That's if you're given those instructions, then you've got something clear to follow. Make sure you know exactly what you've got to do. So if you are preparing a presentation, for example, how do I bring this? Do I email this to you? Do I bring it on my laptop? Do I take it on a USB? Whatever it might be. Do I email it to myself? Just find out those questions that you have in advance. That's absolutely fine to ask. If you're not asked to prepare anything, that's normally the case. It's normally that they'll say don't prepare. What I would say is always do have a look back at the job description and the company, because that is key preparation. Think about some of the questions that you could potentially be asked, some examples that you've gone through of group situations, and that will then help you come prepared and more relaxed. I wouldn't say there's any specific readings unless they've told you to read something in advance. Always have a look at their values if you haven't done that already, because you know that will help paint a picture of the company, but generally will kind of feed into some of the questions. And like Adam and I have said, you know, you on the day you want to be yourself, so you don't want to be sort of trying to be someone you're not and fit into something. That's not what they're looking for. So the preparation is really just make sure you're clear where you've got to be. Preparation, if it's in person, how long is it going to take you to get there? What time train should you be getting? Am I going to get to the office early and then walk back so I can have a coffee and just have, you know, 30 minutes to just sort of decompress? After a rush hour commute or whatever it might be. You don't want to be stressed on a train that potentially is 5 minutes late and then you're running to time. So always that side of the preparation as well, people sometimes forget about. It's not just the role, it's the actual logistics of the day, getting there and things.
So I couldn't agree more. I couldn't agree more. So it's better to prepare to be there earlier. If I arrive 30, 40 minutes early, is it a good idea for me to go into the office and let people know that I'm there super early and super keen?
You can do, but often they'll say, go get a coffee and come back, because they're not going to be ready for you to come in. I'd always say arrive at the office at least 10 minutes early, because that gives you a chance to just, it might be that you're hanging up your coat or putting your bag somewhere, and they might put you in a room. You can talk to some of the other people that are there as well. But yeah, no, it's absolutely fine to sort of walk to the office and you go, look at your time. Oh, I'm about 45 minutes early. Okay, I'm just going to walk back to a coffee shop that I know round the corner, and just think, you know, give yourself that time. But yeah, they're probably not going to invite you into that room that much earlier. So you'll just be sat in the office downstairs in reception, or they'll send you away. So no need to say, oh, I'm actually 45 minutes early. 5-10 minutes early is perfect. And what I would say is, if you do have, trains or things, it happens. Back to Adam's point, you might turn up on the wrong day or whatever. That's okay. Just make someone aware of what's happened. Or if you're running late, try and drop an email or a phone call. Normally there'll be a contact that they've given you to just say, look, I'm really sorry, this is the situation, and they'll be able to advise on the next steps and how they manage that. If you're letting them know, it's really helpful, because then they can let interviewers know, or try and move the schedule depending on the situation.
Super, thank you, Steph. So I have a question here, and excuse my pronunciation. I'm going to go for it and say Xiao Tian Su has asked, earlier on you were talking about virtual events. And regarding that, are there any actions or small things to make you stand out online? So something that's different, anything that you need to do differently online to stand out compared to in person?
Yeah, I think with the virtual, it is a bit harder in a group situation to talk when other people are talking, because often are like, oh, sorry. But what you can do is sort of use the hand function, or just, pop up your hand and just sort of wait. You can use the chat functionality as well to pop in things if you aren't able to speak straight away. But I think generally, it's a good, place to be when you're in your comfort of your own home as well. So there's, the good things and negative things of both situations, and how you can look at it. But I would use that virtual situation to just imagine you are there in person. You've got no, like, shut your doors or whatever it might be, so you've got no distractions, and then you're able to fully focus on the task as if you were in person.
Super, thank you. And I think we've just got time for one more, and it's the same person asking, how much can AI be involved if we're preparing a presentation document? It's 7+ years since I've maybe 6+ years since I've done an assessment center. So AI is a relatively new thing. Is this forming part of assessment centers? Are people being allowed to use their mobiles and tap into AI for any of the activities?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think there's a complete mix in the AI world in terms of what can and can't be used. And what I'm seeing companies is being really clear on when it can and when it can't. So I'd follow their instructions. Generally, if you're using AI to potentially say, please give me some examples of interview questions that I could prepare, then that's a good use of AI to sort of help you prepare. You might ask about a particular company, but you shouldn't use it to sort of write or create a whole presentation, because that's not you. Generally, there'll be guidelines on what you can and can't use. In exercises that I've often done, we've often said, feel free to use the internet, to use your phone, to use whatever it is to help with this activity, but there'll be clear instructions. And if there isn't, just ask. It's okay to say, can I use it? Much better that than you be penalized for using it when you shouldn't have. So if in doubt, just ask the question. It's absolutely fine to ask.
Okay, super. Thank you, Steph. Well, I think that's all we've got time for today. Lots and lots of questions. A few more were coming in, but I think they're on the topics that we've already covered around using AI, about preparing for technical questions. Again, that's going to be different for every industry, that the technical skills that they're looking for there. But I think we've covered most of the questions. So thank you very much. It's super, super useful. Really, thank you for taking the time out. I know this week you're running assessment centres, so thank you for taking the time out for that. For everybody that's joined us, thank you. We hope that we've answered as many questions as possible. Sorry if we haven't. Do remember you have your amazing university career services there to help you, and you can go and ask them any more questions on this. They are doing a fantastic job, so please do use them. Thank you for joining us here at Global Career Advantage. we're putting on a webinar every month, hopefully to help you with your job application preparation process. We will be announcing later this week our next one for September. You can check out our website, globalcareeradvantage.com, and register. We'll keep you updated and follow us on social media for top tips on assessment centres, interviews, CVs, all those kind of things. So thank you for joining us. Steph, you've been fantastic. Thank you. Have a great
Thank you
Tuesday
for having me.
afternoon, and hopefully we'll see you all again. Bye-bye, everybody. Thank you.